Tears of the Kingdom, the game the gamers desperately needed. It is a breath of fresh air in a landscape rid of experimentation and risk taking. And ironically, the game that brought so much innovation also brought back some old traditions, including some old faces. Tears of the Kingdom brought back the likes of Likes, Gleeoks, Gibdos, and even Armos, just with a different name. And in this video, we're going to bring back even more classic enemies, starting with the Dark Knight. Now the Dark Knight would make its debut in Zelda 1, as this knight enemy that can only take damage from the sides or from its rear end. And this would carry on throughout all of the 2D Zelda games until Wind Waker, where he would later return in 3D, and with a drastic change in appearance. The Dark Knight would still have its familiar set of armour, but this time it would be held together by a set of strings, and to defeat it, you would simply have to cut off these strings to relieve it of its armour, and this would reveal a furry underneath. A furry that knows karate. Yes, when unarmed, the Dark Knight would use martial arts on you, which in comparison makes its Twilight Princess appearance look way less cool, harbouring just a simple black suit of armour with no dog inside, and its combat looking something a bit more like Ocarina's Iron Knuckle. With that said, when it came time to make a new design, I fused the main features of the 3 previous ones. Our new Dark Knight will have your usual heavy set of armour, borrowing Twilight Princess's colour scheme of mostly black, and it will also have Wind Waker's dog features, because out of all the 3 designs, this one is the one that stands out the most. Now anatomy wise, I had to look at the other enemies in Tears of the Kingdom, which all have semi-accurate anatomies, especially in the muscle groups, but with a lot of shape language incorporated, and so I did the same. Mostly using elongated shapes to make it look very tall, and sharp edges to make it more menacing. But when designing a video game character, you have to keep in mind the role we'll play gameplay wise. Since our Dark Knight will be a mini boss, I looked at all of the mini bosses in Tears of the Kingdom, and I found 3 types of them. You have your hit moving weak spot, boss drops, hit again and again mini boss. These include your stone taluses, hinoxes, gleeoks, and flux construct. You have your feed bomb explodes, hit boss again and again mini boss. These are your froxes and moldugas. And lastly, you have your flurry rush focused mini boss, these being your Lionels and Phantom Ganons. And that's the type of boss that our Dark Knight will be. Just like in Zelda 1, our Dark Knight won't be able to take damage from the front, but this time, when it's hit with a flurry rush, it will sustain damage, and also when it's hit on the crack that it has on its back, this being its weak point, meaning that its moveset will have to include a lot of frontal charge attacks and spin attacks to expose its back, and when it comes to combos, it will be similar to Phantom Ganon's fight. Sword swings with a lot of anticipation to time the perfect dodge, but with followed up strikes, this both with swords and spears. And as its HP gets lower, it will start losing pieces of its armour, just like in Wind Waker, increasing the amount of damage it can take. And after defeating this behemoth, your spoils of battle will include these cool looking horns, all shaped like greatswords. Now our next returning foe will be an enemy that to this day has only appeared in Zelda 1. This being Veye. You know, that big flying enemy that when disposed of would turn into 2 keys? Yes, we're bringing this one back. Simply because of the lack of good airborne enemies in Tears of the Kingdom, or at least ones that don't die with only 1 hit. Now our new Veye will have a pretty unique anatomy, it being a humanoid bat covered in key size. When designing this new version of Veye, I decided to make the link between it and keys a bit more obvious, and it also helped it achieve a more memorable look. Our new Veye will also be able to wield weapons this time, mainly bows and spears, and possibly broadswords, meaning that you will be able to perform flurry rushes on them. Now as you probably can imagine, in-game, this enemy will have no trouble in spotting you. Once you fight and kill it, it will burst into a flock of keys, just like in the first game. But this time, it will have some variants. Take the power scaling used with bokoblins. The power scale in bokoblins goes from the colour red to silver. The same thing will be with our Veye. The number of keys that are released will correspond to the number of pupils that are in the eyes, this going from 2 to 5. So if the Veye has 2 pupils, it will release 2 keys. and if the Veye has 5 pupils, it will release 5 keys. And once you kill the keys, you can collect Veye eyes. They will work in a similar way to key size. When fused with an arrow, the Veye eye will give it the homing attribute just like the key size, but with a twist. An arrow fused with a Veye eye will hit the number of targets corresponding to the number of pupils, meaning if a Veye eye has 5 pupils, it will hit 5 enemies all in a row. And to make the selection process a bit easier while in bullet time, I'll probably give each Veye eye a different colour. And now, our last returning enemy, and it will be the Techtite. Yes, those annoying fellas. They first appeared in Zelda 1 and made even further appearances later on, both in 2D and 3D. But the Techtite we're going to bring back is not your conventional one. Tears of the Kingdom only has 2 aquatic enemies, these being the Octoroks and of course the Lizalfos, and our Techtite shall be the 3rd, because in A Link to the Past, the water Techtite was introduced. It would be this bug-like enemy that would skill across bodies of water and knock into you. Our new Techtite will do the same, but this time he won't be limited to the water. With this new tail, he will be able to grapple onto you, bringing him out of the water, straight into you. Our new Techtite will also have elemental variants, just like Lizalfos, meaning if it's a lava Techtite, it will skill across lava, and when it bumps into you, it will deal fire damage. The same goes for the other elements. Now to defeat our new Techtite, it's going to be a challenge, because it has very unpredictable moves, so it will easily dodge any arrow you throw at it. The best way to defeat it will be to let it grapple onto you and hit it before it hits you. Just like in the other games, our Techtite will be a pretty frail enemy, so it will go down with 1 hit. And after you're finished exterminating our Techtite, it will leave you some pretty sweet gifts. Yes, you shall get its grapple hook to fuse it onto your weapons. Fuse it onto a sword, and will serve as a whip, just like the Lizalfos tail. Fuse it onto your shield, and it'll be able to bring enemies closer to you, fixing this problem. And finally, you can fuse it onto your arrows, and you'll be able to grapple yourself towards things, either enemies or ledges. Subscribe for more.